Ladies of Letters by Lou Wakefield and Carol Heyman.
"34 Wormwold Way, Heather Green, 14th of July. Dear Vera, thank you for your thank you letter of the 9th. Yes, it was a lovely day. It was kind of you to write a thank you note. So few people bother now, and I did enjoy your company at the reception. It's a shame you live so far away, since we seem to share so many interests. Must close, as Sydney is howling for his tea. He's getting a bit spoilt, I'm afraid. The secret of my taramasalata dip is that I mix the roe with cottage cheese and perhaps a few breadcrumbs. It always proves popular at parties. Kind regards, Irene Spencer."
The Gables, Little Potterton, 16th of July. Dear Irene, I quite agree that not enough people bother these days. Courtesy costs nothing, I always say. Unless you count 26p for the stamp, isn't it an awful price? You will miss Leslie at first, I'm sure. She's a lovely girl, and looked magical in her wedding gown. Still, Keith seems a pleasant chap. I tried your taramasalata on the vicar's wife, and she said she'd never tasted anything like it. Exchange is no robbery, so here's one of my standbys. Crumble a packet of digestive biscuits into a pan of bittersweet melted chocolate and butter. Mix well. Turn into a flat pie dish and press well down. Pop into the freezer. Delicious as a tea-time snack or cut into squares as petit fours. Well, I must close, as it's time for a book at bedtime. It's the Boston Strangler this week. All the best, Vera.
21st of July. Dear Vera, your letter has thrown me into utter mental turmoil. I haven't slept a wink since receiving it. Now, I hope this will go no further. I should hate everybody to think I was a fool, even if I am. Of course, you know that I had 100 guests to invite. Well, Leslie and Keith wrote out a list, and Keith's parents and I lost track of who was who. The long and the short of it is, I thought you were one of Keith's family when I met you. It wasn't until in your last letter you said, "Keith seems a pleasant chap," that I had the inkling of an idea that you weren't one of his aunties. Are you one of Leslie's old teachers? Please don't say you are one of my family, or I think I shall go mad. Perhaps I am already. I do forget people's names, and I mislay things constantly. This is how old ladies are supposed to go on, isn't it? But I'm only 62. Now, I hope this won't spoil our friendship, because I did so enjoy your company. I've certainly not danced a tango like that in years, before I was married, in fact. This brings me to my second point. I do remember that we enjoyed a quantity of liquid libation, and in the heat of the moment I might have uttered one or two confidences to you. There are a couple of small things of a personal nature that I'd rather not tell the world and his wife, if you know what I mean. And if I did tell you, then please, please forget them. Oh dear, I'm not usually an emotional person. Perhaps it's the shock of Leslie and Keith deciding to stay a week longer. If they'd come home as planned, I could have asked Leslie who you were. But then, again, perhaps I wouldn't have. Children get so irritable when you forget things, don't they? With sincerest good wishes, Irene.
30th of July, my dear Irene. Sorry to have been a while answering your letter, and I do know what you mean about this absent-minded business. Only yesterday I set off to the shop for toilet paper and came back with a tin of cherry blossom and 20 cigarettes. I wouldn't have minded, but I haven't smoked since I was 12. Sometimes I think I would forget my own name if it wasn't on a chain round my neck. Karen gave it to me for my last birthday, and I wonder if it wasn't a hint. No, I'm not from either side. I'm an old friend of Betty's, and as I was staying with her when she masterminded your catering, I thought I might as well give her a hand. The salmon mousse and the blue cheese quiche were mine. I do recall having one or two sherries, but I've no memory at all of dancing the tango. Are you sure it was me? As to any confidences, I can assure you they are quite safe with me. Betty says I passed out as soon as I got in the car. It's nice to think that you felt you could confide in me, though. I've often longed for a friend to talk about personal matters. Men don't encourage intimacy, do they? I always felt rather a hysterical fool if I got emotional about anything with Gerald. How have you filled your extra week without Leslie and Keith? Pity I didn't know sooner, or you could have popped up here for a couple of days. Must stop now, as Mabel is at the door. I expect she's on the borrow again. Take care of yourself and steer clear of the sherry bottle. All the best, Vera.
2nd of August. Dear Vera, I don't know quite what you mean by your parting remark about staying away from the sherry bottle. Tippling has never been a vice I have fallen foul of, and sherry has never been my drink. I can assure you that the reception was the exception that proves the rule, and if a mother can't get tipsy at her only daughter's wedding, I don't know what to think. I have tried your recipe, but I found it rather rich. Yours sincerely, Irene Spencer.
The Gables, 10th of August. Dear Irene, just a note to let you know I've had a little spell in hospital. I've still got my arm in a sling. The fact is that I had a silly fall the very morning your letter arrived. I was running upstairs to get my writing paper, and the dog had parked himself right at the top. I was in a bit of a state, just didn't see him, and down I went. I've had concussion, cracked ribs, and a nasty sprained wrist. Hope you are keeping well. Yours, Vera.
12th of August. Dear Vera, words cannot express the remorse I feel at having caused you such misery. I remember only too well when I sprained my ankle on the garage door to conjure up visions of black swelling and agony. It is one of those swing-up-and-over affairs, and Clive was in such a hurry to watch the cricket and was hooting at me to make haste. Somehow my slacks had got caught up in the mechanism. As I threw the door upwards, I suddenly found myself hanging upside down, suspended by one leg. The pain was excruciating, and I was in too much physical distress to see the humorous side of it, which Clive certainly did. Afterwards, at dinner parties, he used to joke that seeing me like that almost made up for missing both and making the winning century. I feel so culpable, is that the right word, for making you fall. If I hadn't written that rather starchy letter, you wouldn't have been running upstairs at all. Leslie's yoga teacher says that negative energy is bound to beget negative results. And I must say, now that I've had proof positive, I'm going to buy one of those ionizers to see if that will charge the atmosphere at home in a more constructive way. And I'm going to stop taking the tablets the doctor prescribed. They make me feel so depressed. I hope you are enjoying the flowers I sent. I asked for a mixture of yellow, always such a cheering colour. The girl at the florist's looked as if she'd understood me, but you never can tell. Incidentally, I did enjoy your chocolate square recipe. I said it was rich because I was angry, but in actual fact I gorged the lot. With kindest regards, Irene.
27th of August. Dear Irene, you are a silly to think that I blame you for the fall. The flowers were lovely, sweet peas in pink and mauve. I always think they are so urethral looking, though they don't last. Mabel had to clear them out by the time I returned from my few days away. Did you get my PC? Mabel didn't receive hers until 2 days after I was back. You might as well send stuff by carrier pigeon. In case you didn't, an old friend of mine, Ethel Roscoe, runs a guest house on the coast, and I popped off there for a few days. Ethel's a great one for chat. In fact, most nights my head was ringing by the time we got to bed. But all the cooking was done by hand, and the views from their bay window are quite panoramic. Of course it rained like a drain the whole time, but nothing drives the blues away quicker than a brisk walk in a howling gale. I found a couple of petals in the pocket of that two-piece I wore at the wedding. I believe they're off your hat. Do you want them back?
Do you want them back? They are rather crumpled, I'm afraid. Best regards, Vera. 28th of August. Dear Vera, what a coincidence that you know Ethel Roscoe. I knew her before she moved to the coast, and you are absolutely right when you say she's a chatterer, mostly rather catty gossip unfounded on fact, although I'm sure she wouldn't remember me. Don't bother returning the petals. I shall snip the remaining blooms off and use them as the central theme for my Yuletide table decoration. Leslie should be about ready for some home cooking then. I've hardly seen them since they've been back. Oh, well, I suppose I was the same when I was first married, until I learnt that a mother really is a girl's best friend. Unfortunately, my own mother passed away shortly after I'd learnt to appreciate her, a tragedy that I have regretted bitterly ever since. Well, cheerio for now. Take care of yourself and don't overdo things. Kind regards, Irene.
November the 10th. Dear Irene, I've been jamming and pickling like a lunatic. Really, it is silly to do so much, but it's such a hard habit to break, isn't it, doing things for a family? I'm hoping Karen will come for Christmas, so she can take some back. Actually, she's gone terribly faddy with her food and goes berserk about chemical additives. I hope she doesn't count pectin, or I shall have to take the lot to the bring and buy. Yours in haste, Vera. Oh, P.S. Fancy you knowing Ethel. She did mention you, but I always take everything she says with a pinch of salt. October the 3rd. Dear Irene, I've been in such a state since I last wrote that it has taken me all this time to realise I've not had a reply to my last. Are you ill, or has some kind of crisis occurred? I'm up to my eyes in plaster dust and rubble. The builders came to replace a tile in the roof, but one of them put his foot through the ceiling and brought the lot down. They had to take up the carpet and then discovered some beetle in a floorboard. Too late I discovered I'm allergic to woodworm spray, and am now attending outpatients for chronic asthma and staying with Mabel Thrush. Write to me at home. I pop in once a day to collect the mail. Yours affec. Vera.
October the 7th. Dear Vera, I'm absolutely fine, thank you. I do hope you are more organised with the builders now. Personally, I always pay that little bit extra and get a reputable firm. It saves money in the long run. To be frank, I didn't write at first because of my annoyance over Ethel Roscoe. I bet I know what she said about me, and it has very little basis in truth. Clive was very drunk at the time. But it's all in the past, and if you see her again, do please give her my kindest regards, and tell her I hope her son is better now. He went to prison, you know. I think that's why she moved. I can't write more just now because Bill is coming over to take me out to a dinner dance. Life has been so hectic since he has been paying his attentions, and it has perked me up no end. He is a widower whose wife died very slowly and painfully last year, and I have never seen a man so devoted. Actually, he was at Leslie's wedding. You may remember him. He wore a grey morning suit where most of the men wore tails. He is what used to be called a gentleman. Actually, most Sundays we go out for a run in his car, and Bill says he knows an exquisite French restaurant quite near Little Potterton. He says he would be delighted to take us both there for Sunday lunch. Would you enjoy that? Life can be so lonely on your own, I know. Anyway, the first and third Sundays in November would be fine with us.
Anyway, the first and third Sundays in November would be fine with us. Do take care of your asthma. There's nothing worse than a nasty chest. Fondest wishes, Irene. October the 20th. Dear Irene, how pleasant to hear from you at last. I'm so glad you haven't allowed your new interest completely to take over your life. I do remember Bill from the reception. He was the one who dropped the salmon mousse all down his front, wasn't he? Do come over and see me one Sunday, though I can't recommend the restaurant. It's called Les Liaisons Dangereuses, and I must say their menu bears the name out. I certainly wouldn't put a strawberry Pernod sauce with halibut. However, if you would like to sample some less recherché dishes at my humble abode, I'd be delighted. It would have to be the third Sunday, as the first is the blood donors' remembrance service, and I always do the flowers. Best wishes, Vera. P.S. My chest is much better. Mabel Thrush knitted me a thermal boob tube.
November the 29th. Dear Vera, a little thank-you note for such a pleasant day. You look quite different to how I remembered, although, of course, you were just the same as your letters. The lunch was superb. I've always admired people who cook in an exotic way. Personally, I am a plain cook, but then so many men say that is what they like, don't they? I know Clive did. Anyway, Bill thought it was absolutely gorgeous, and on a par with Les Liaisons Dangereuses. I was so pleased that the two of you got on. It's so nice when one's friends like each other, isn't it? He's not stopped going on about how nice you looked in that two-piece from Mark's. He wanted me to buy one, but when you're slim and fine-boned, you have to be very careful what you wear. What are you doing at Christmas? Is Karen coming home? I'm still hoping that Leslie and Keith will come here, but I dare say Bill will want to see me over the holidays, so it may be just as well if they don't come. Anyway, thank you from us both. You must come here soon. Fond regards, Irene.
December the 10th, dearest Irene. It's been all go here since Mabel Thrush went into hospital. Did I mention that she had to have her leg off? I've just come back from visiting now. She'd run out of 2-ply heliotrope and lemon barley water. I said to myself, that puts paid to her having the dog again. She'll never be able to take it walkies. Talking of the dog, I do apologise for his behaviour when you visited. He really doesn't usually make that awful pong. Did you have a good journey back? I thought Bill was a trifle won over the 8. He's written me a very nice note, as a matter of fact. Funnily enough, he's going to be in this area over the break, visiting relations. I'm at a loss over Christmas. Karen still hasn't said a word. I suppose it'll depend upon the state of her relationship. Howard's going to walk the Pennine Way with a friend. Seems a peculiar way to spend Christmas to me. I suppose I will have to have Mabel in, but frankly I'm not getting a huge bird just for me and her and the dog. I suppose you'll be gadding with Bill. How lovely to have some reasons for dressing up. I haven't worn my diamante since the night Gerald died. By the way, I loved that tweed suit you were wearing. So comfy looking. Don't take any notice of Bill. You've got your own taste and style, most definitely. I'm off to do some Christmas shopping now, so I'll close. Love, Vera. P.S. What an awful thing to say about Mabel. I do hope you realised it was only a joke.
22nd of December. Dear Vera, I hope this parcel gets to you for Christmas Day at this short notice. I'm disappointed at not seeing you at Christmas, but it's my own fault for just assuming. When Bill mentioned yesterday that it was his mother-in-law he'd be staying with, I immediately understood that it would be quite improper for me to go with him. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've had to do emergency shopping today since I hadn't expected to be doing any catering. Leslie and Keith had arranged to spend Christmas with his parents, but now they're all coming over to me for Boxing Day. Anyway, have a lovely Christmas. Kindest regards, Irene.
2nd of January, dear Irene. I'm so glad you made that unexpected visit on Christmas Day, even if you did find me up to my elbows in sage and onion. How lucky your friends happened to be driving up this way. I do hope the day was pleasanter for you than it was for me. Frankly, I was in that much of a fluster with Karen just descending out of the blue and Bill dropping by at 9:30 on Christmas morning for a sherry. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. What a shame you missed him. Boxing Day was much nicer. Bill took us for a run in the afternoon. Actually, Karen refused to come. She and Bill had words over South Africa when we were eating our Stilton and grapes. Karen was in a towering rage the whole of the holiday. She and Kevin are having a trial separation, but she only found out on Christmas Eve. Karen left this morning with half the turkey. Kevin rang on New Year's Day and said the trial was over. Karen said she supposed he'd emptied the deep freeze by now. I shall fricassee the rest and take it round to Mabel. She would come out on New Year's Eve. I was going to a do at the Undertaker's Hall. They always have such glorious flower arrangements. But of course I felt I had to stay with Mabel. I saw the New Year in with a glass of Lucozade. Mabel drank her denture water by mistake. Well, toodle pip and Happy New Year. Bill said I must pop down and see you both soon. He mentioned a holiday cottage weekend. All the best, Vera. 28th of April, dear Vera. I was clearing out my drawers this morning, and I came across your letters.
I was clearing out my drawers this morning, and I came across your letters, and I've been plunged into soul-searching and depression all day. Looking back on that awful time 2 years ago, I feel really stupid and ashamed, and if I had my time over again, the whole silly episode wouldn't have been allowed to come to a head. But there you are, it did, and what's done can't be undone. I think that if only I'd kept my cool and laughed it off, as I noticed Marjorie Proops recommended to a girl in the Mirror who was in a situation similar to mine, then the whole thing would probably have blown over. Anyway, it's no use crying over spilt milk, and we can all be wise after the event. I don't know if you're still at the same address, but if you do get this, I'd be overjoyed to hear how you are. Leslie's had a little girl, and they're thinking of going to Australia. All for now, in case you're not there. I don't want all my news falling into the wrong hands. With sincere good wishes, Irene Spencer.
May, dear Irene. I was so pleased to get your letter. I can't tell you how many anguished, sleepless nights I've had over the whole thing. So much so that the doctor said if I went on the way I was doing, I would certainly end up in a neck brace. It took me several months to climb out of the slough of despond, and I was very much aided by literature and music. I've cleaned the library out of Barbara Taylor Bradford and found Strauss particularly cheering. I want to put your mind at rest about one thing. Bill and I never meant to end up in bed together. It was all a mistake on the part of the hotel. I did think the suite was rather palatial when I was shown up, but I was tired, so I went straight into the adjoining bathroom and started to undress. Unbeknownst to me, Bill was doing the same thing in his adjoining bathroom. There are two in the honeymoon suite, you see. I came out in my nightie, got into bed, put out the light, and dozed off. Bill must have done the same. We never noticed each other, which of course is easily done in a king size. Imagine how we felt when the light snapped on, and there you were with your suitcase. Now, I know what it must have looked like with Bill wrapped round me. As he said to me afterwards, he thought I was a bolster. But I don't think that was any reason for you to storm out. I mean, put yourself in my position. In bed with a stranger and without a scrap of makeup. You weren't the only one in shock. It wasn't until a week later that it struck me as odd that you'd booked the honeymoon suite to begin with. Bill was under the impression that it was a weekend break for 3 singles. I can't deny that it did lead to a greater intimacy between Bill and myself, but that went the way of all things, including the picture window. But I'm as willing as you to pick up the pieces. Mabel Thrush is dead, as is the dog, and life can be awfully lonely. Yours, Vera.
14th of May. Dear Vera, thank you for your letter, my dear. Although my first reaction was to get in a rage all over again, which I can ill afford with my blood pressure. I did not book the honeymoon suite. I did not do the booking at all. Bill did. So what was he up to? I can only come up with answers too far-fetched to contemplate, particularly as Bill married a girl half his age last year and is now a father again. At his time in life, he looks absolutely haggard, serve him right. Anyway, how are you? I'm so sorry to hear about Mabel. You sound a bit down in the mouth. I'm free next weekend and the weekend after. Why don't you come on a visit? It would be so pleasant to see you again and discuss old times. Well, some of them. Let me know your plans and I'll roll out the red carpet. With kindest regards, Irene. P.S. What's all this about the picture window going west? Surely not. The best thing about your living room is being able to see out.
16th of May, dear Irene. I can't come this weekend, as it's over to Great Potterton for their bring and buy for the disabled, but I could come the weekend after. How about if I came on the Wednesday and stayed till the Tuesday? Oh, I haven't even said thank you for the kind invitation. Of course I'd be glad to keep you company. I'm sure it's very depressing having time on your hands on a Sunday. Karen and Kevin have split up. Karen said finding the crab was the last straw. I don't know to which crab she was referring. Children can be such a worry. I haven't seen Howard since he went to live in the country. When he told me he was going to Derbyshire, I thought he meant for the weekend, not for 2 years. Well, got to get stuck into my gattos for the bring and buy. Never mind the red carpet. Have a gin and tonic ready. Warmest regards, Vera. P.S. The picture window is a long story, and I won't bore you with it now, except to say I was very disappointed. I'd always understood reinforced glass was supposed to withstand the heaviest of flung objects.
21st of May, dear Vera. I just nipped down to the village to get some gin. I don't normally keep it in, when I suddenly remembered the Cricket Club Ladies' Night Dance on Friday. Being the widow of an ex-vice-captain, I am, of course, expected to attend, and this year I have been chosen to judge the spot prize, so I raced round to see Arthur Snooshall, still clutching the bottle of gin, I realised afterwards, so I don't know what he made of that. And the upshot was that he'd be delighted to have an extra spare lady, so I hope to goodness that you get this in time to organise a long dress, as it is formal. See you Wednesday. Irene.
1st of June. My very dear Irene. Here I am back in Cars-a-Mere and feeling very down in the dumps. Words are inadequate to express my thanks for such a splendid time. I've often thought penning an opera the only really satisfactory way of expressing great emotion. Sadly, I'm not gifted in that direction, though Karen once rudely remarked that I lived my life as though it were one. Which reminds me, you're a dark horse, keeping quiet about that nice young curate Bruce until he appeared at Sunday lunchtime. That was a merry gathering, wasn't it? I do hope he was all right for evensong. What a charmer Arthur Snooshall is! He apologised so profusely, I don't know how you have the heart still to be angry with him. It was an honest mistake and easily made, when you're 3 sheets to the wind. I thoroughly enjoyed presenting the prize, even though I was quite at a loss with the jokes about leg-side wides and maiden overs. Gerald wasn't a cricket player. In fact, all your friends were very hospitable and pleasant. I don't know why you warned me about Dorothy Bickerstaff. She had nothing but kind words to say about you, including that Clive had led you a dog's life. Your cooking was, well, what can I say? Prolific. Don't forget to put in that recipe for the mulled wine. Your curate certainly enjoyed it. Oh, dear, the phone. That was Karen. Apparently she's coming on a visit. Better close now, as I must scurry round and get some food in. With 1,000,000 thanks, Vera.
4th of June, dear Vera. You may not be aware that my maiden name was Onions. When I was a child, I tried to honour my father and my mother, who sacrificed everything for my education at Tavistock Road School for Girls by working hard and trying to excel, despite the fact that I have never been a top-notch intellectual. You can imagine my delight, therefore, when in my last year I was awarded a beautifully bound copy of the King James Bible for neatness. I remember to this day the pride with which I took my place on the platform to receive it, in my darned but immaculate school uniform, and for the occasion a borrowed pair of white kid gloves. The school hall resounded with cheers, and I was happier than I have ever been. On returning to my place, however, I opened the book only to see not my name, but Irene Springthorpe's, the girl who had head lice in 4B. Miss Frobisher assured me that it was an obvious error, and offered to have it scratched out and amended, but as it was a prize for neatness, I naturally declined. I can never open that Bible without being filled with a sense of cruel injustice. The handing out of the spot prizes this year was to have been an honour bestowed upon me by the club in recognition of my doing the catering for the players' refreshment for 25 years, and carrying on to this day, despite my husband not playing for the team after he died 3 years ago. I can forgive Arthur his mistake, but I find it very difficult to come to terms with your selfishness in not pointing it out and just capitalising on it to hog the limelight. As for your allegations about Bruce and myself, I can assure you that our relations go no further than his kind offer to help me out over a couple of sticky points in St. Paul's epistle to the Ephesians. I trust you will take this letter in the spirit it is intended.
I trust you will take this letter in the spirit it is intended, and that you will try to have more thought for others instead of sailing gaily through their lives, treading on their corns. Kind regards, Irene. 12th of June, dear Irene. I am sorry about your awful childhood. It excuses a lot. I told myself again how lucky I was, always at the centre of a group of friends and admirers. Speaking of which, Eric Glendower is coming up the path, so I must finish this later. He wanted me to sponsor him for a swim. I said yes, as I'm sure he'll never go over 3 lengths. His pacemaker couldn't take it. Last week Mavis Peake cost me an arm and a leg on a sponsored ice dance for pensioners. Actually, she cost herself an arm and a leg. During the rumbas, she fell over and broke her wrist and her ankle. Karen's obviously got something on her mind, but I'll be the last to know it. Well, my dear, I'm sure in a saner moment you will realise how highly I value our friendship. As I said to Karen, I had no idea women could be so close. At last I know what it is to have a sister. She said, where had I been for the last 20 years, had I heard of the women's movement? Hoping you feel better soon, Vera.
Of June, dear Vera. Where are you? I've been trying to phone you and you're never in. The worst has happened. Keith got the job in New South Wales and he and Leslie left yesterday. I've been sobbing for days. Not to see my Cheryl Marie grow up is the cruelest thing Leslie could ever do to me, and she's done some things in her time. And they've left me with her house to sell and arrange shipment of furniture. Why couldn't Leslie have stayed to do that herself? And how irresponsible for the 3 of them to fly out on the same plane. You never catch the royal family doing that, and they are seasoned air travellers. It's 5 a.m, and it's too late to go to bed now. I couldn't sleep anyway, despite the brandy I've taken to dull my emotion. I have never felt so alone. Please come and help me out, Vera. I really need a friend. I'd ring the Samaritans, but I don't know their number. Leslie just rang, bubbling over to say they'd arrived safely. She seems incapable of grasping the fact that if I'd been asleep, she'd have woken me up. I suppose now I'm going to have to face years of sleepless nights wondering if she's going to ring. Yours in distress, Irene.
24th of June. My dear Irene, I nearly wept when I read your letter. To be honest, I had plenty to weep about. You couldn't get me as I was away looking after Karen. I was rung up in the middle of the night last Tuesday by some hospital orderly, saying they'd found my name in Karen's file of facts under next of kin, and could I come immediately? The hospital was in semi-darkness. I believe they're economising on electricity. And a very junior night nurse eventually located Karen in the Margaret Hilda Roberts ward, a desolate room, empty but for a single bed and a do-it-yourself first aid kit. Karen was asleep. Oh, Irene, what a blessing it is that you're such a good friend, and so far away. If I confided this to anyone here, it'd be round the village in seconds. Karen is pregnant. The ward sister explained that Karen had been rushed to hospital with a suspected miscarriage. They'd needed to give her a blood transfusion, and as they didn't have any handy, they'd phoned to see if I could donate some. I was rolling up my sleeve when she said not to worry, they'd found some frozen in the canteen fridge. I can't describe my horror, rage, despair, etc. When she woke up, her first question was whether she'd lost the baby. I said, unfortunately not, but we'd just have to grin and bear it. She told me not to be so F-word stupid. She wanted the baby desperately. I'm afraid I lost my temper. Years of pent-up grief came out. Starting with the time, aged 3, she'd set fire to a teddy bear I'd had since I was a baby. She just stared at me, and when I dried up, said I'd better make use of my hospital trip to visit the psychiatrist. I retorted that I hoped the blood transfusion hadn't been infected, but in any case the baby would probably have hooves, as it had come from a pound of calf's liver. The awful things one says in the heat of the moment. Then the sister said they needed the bed, and could I take her home now? That's where I've been ever since. I can't face going out of doors, so you're welcome to come to me, my dear, and I'll do my best to cheer you, but be prepared for a wrung-out dishcloth. Yours as ever, Vera.
4th of July. Dear Vera, I hope your spirits have remained up since I left, and I'm quite sure once you see your grandchild you'll see how wrong you were to be upset over its coming. Nothing can compare to a grandmother's joy, a baby of your very own without the usual messy and inconvenient ways of getting it. I enclose a card for Karen for you to forward. I've sealed it, but there's no big mystery, just a get well and congratulations combined. Remember what I said about Christmas and start looking at the catalogues. If we go early, we'll be back in plenty of time before Karen needs you. And forget Saga, I don't want to be stuck with a load of old people. Your friend, Irene. 4th of July. My dear Karen, just a little thank you note for all our lovely chats. If I had a daughter like you, I'd count myself as truly blessed. But try to be kind to your mother, dear. Our generation had different ideas about things, and not all of us have managed to adapt our way of thinking as yet. I've thought over your little problem, and I stick by what I said. Don't tell her till after it's born. You never know, it might be very pale, and she might never need to be any the wiser. I'll try to drop the odd casual mention about the plus side of our Commonwealth friends, but don't hesitate to ring me if you need a chat. Fondest wishes, Reen.
28th of July, dear Irene. You're right to keep yourself busy. It's the best cure for desperation. I have scoured the house from top to bottom and finally tackled Gerald's cupboard, which I haven't been able to touch since he died. And I wish I'd let well alone. I found some things of a deeply distressing nature, of which I will only say that now I see where Karen gets her depraved behaviour. Howard, thank God, has always favoured my side. He's such a dear. His invitation to visit the Derby Dales came just in the nick of time, and I'm off there for the weekend. He and Anthony live in a converted sheep bothy and are turning it into an alternative health and therapy centre. They make sheep's yoghurt and take turns to comb their flock. You wouldn't believe how untidy they get, he tells me. Well, I'll see for myself tomorrow. All the best, Vera. P.S. My phone's been off the hook, as I've been getting nuisance calls.
19th of August. Dear Vera, what a happy few days I've had having Karen here. Your daughter is such a lovely girl. I hope you've got over having the hump with us now. I had no idea she was planning to visit, and I don't think she did till she was halfway up the motorway. I don't know where you get your conspiracy ideas from. Karen said you'd been watching too much Dynasty. I'm really writing to find out your views on the Caribbean hulls. If we don't book soon, we'll be bitterly disappointed and end up going somewhere we don't like with no bathroom facilities. I hope you don't mind, but Karen confided in me about Howard. I think you're marvellous accepting it so naturally. But it seems strange to me that you can forgive Howard for the way he is, yet can't seem to come to grips with Karen. I mean, any girl can make one mistake and catch her toe, but Howard must be sinning on a nightly basis. Is it because he's your son, do you think? I've always been very grateful for not having had a boy. I know I would have spoiled him to death. I suppose that most boys in Howard's predicament have had a very emotional relationship with their mothers. The house feels very empty without Karen, and I'm starting to have wanderlust again. I could come and look after you for a few days next week or the week after, but not the week after that, as that is when they are sending the bulldozers in to start on the nuclear dump under the golf links, and we're having a sit-in on the 18th tee. I don't know what I'll wear. Hurry up and decide about our hulls. Warmest regards, Irene.
25th of August, dear Irene. I got stuck in the automatic bus doors on Friday and was cursed by the driver in fluent Caribbean. I've quite gone off it for a holiday. As for your obscure remarks about Howard, they are both puzzling and hurtful. I've always known Karen was deeply jealous of her brother, but I had no idea she went around fabricating stories about his relationship with me. What is she suggesting? I can't see a thing wrong with vegetarianism. And if you consider a few pints after a hard day's colonic irrigation sinning, then you're even more narrow-minded than I thought. I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to visit at the moment, as I've invited Ethel Roscoe. She's such good company, always up for a gossip and a giggle. Good luck with the sit-in. I should wear that bathing costume you impulse bought last summer. Should be enough to frighten a bulldozer. Yours, Vera. P.S. I've discovered it is Arthur Snooshall who's been making the nuisance calls. If his wife thinks she's happily married, I can only say poor creature. The Manse, the Green, Heather Green, 6th of October. Dear Mrs. Small, I wonder if you remember meeting me.
I wonder if you remember meeting me at the luncheon table of our mutual friend, Mrs. Irene Spencer. I found your address in her book, and take the liberty of writing, which intrusion I hope you will forgive in the circumstances. You may be aware that we in Heather Green and surrounding parishes mounted a demonstration against the building of a nuclear waste dumping site a few weeks ago, but you may not have read of the consequences of this peaceful protest. I enclose a cutting from the Micklechester Mercury and draw your attention to the 5th paragraph. A sex-mad granny, 83, as yet unnamed, wearing only a multicoloured lurex bathing costume and high heels, maliciously head-butted a bulldozer driven by a Mr. Ken Haggard. Allegations that the ageing beauty queen had been trying to warn Mr. Haggard of a small child in his path have proved groundless. The lady in question was our mutual friend. Irene came out of her coma early last week, and most of the injuries are nearly completely healed. However, she is suffering from almost total amnesia, and since she is to be returned to the community soon, I'm wondering if you might help. I know that she regards you as her closest friend. Her first and only words on regaining consciousness were, "You told me it had frightened the bulldozer, Vera." Since then, she has become a deaf-mute. The doctors feel that if our old friends were to remind her of themselves and their common experiences, then her memory and her ability to communicate may be restored. Could you find time to jot her a few lines, even if only to talk about the war, which made a great impression on people of your generation? I do hope you may be able to help, as I am soon to take up my duties in my new parish, and it would be a comfort to know that a good friend
was taking responsibility for her recovery. God bless and keep you. Yours, Bruce.
Of October. Dear Mrs. Small, thank you for your kind letter, which the hospital forwarded to me today. I stumbled on some other letters of yours the other day, and I was wondering if you'd crop up again. It looks from the last letter you wrote me before the accident as if I'd upset you, for which I can only apologise and assure you that, as far as I'm concerned, the hatchet is well and truly buried. I have got to grips with the fact that I have a daughter called Leslie, as she has phoned me a couple of times in the middle of the night. I can't say I'm much drawn to her. She has a very shrill edge to her voice and seems to think I'm to blame for everything that's ever happened to her. If I've been as wicked to her as she tries to make out, it's a wonder the NSPCC didn't send me to the gallows years ago. I see from the newspapers that I used to be sex-mad, but I can't say I've had many stirrings since. My solicitor says that we must sue for loss of sex drive, but I'm in enough trouble already without aggravating the police. I'm to be charged with obstruction and wilful damage to a bulldozer, which all sounds a bit far-fetched to me. It was interesting to read your reminiscences about the war, and it reminded me that the day war broke out, I started my periods, which seemed to me to be much more important at the time. As you say, the things you remember. I hope you write to me again soon. Everybody round here seems a bit embarrassed that I don't know them, but you seem much more fun. I hope the second time around you choose me for your friend again. Can I call you Vera? With love and gratitude, Irene Spencer.
30th of October. My dear Irene, I was very touched. Of course you can call me Vera. Talking to you about the war has set off a lot of reminiscences. I got an old photograph album out of the attic and had a flick through. I did laugh. Those trousers. We all seemed so happy. You wouldn't have thought there was a war on. I couldn't put a name to all the faces, but I did remember Gerald, my husband, who was jolly good-looking in uniform, but terribly wet at kissing. Which brings me to your point about sex drive. I never knew I had one until Gerald died, but looking at those pictures brought it all back to me. I felt a most peculiar stirring. I hope you don't mind my getting personal. It might be useful to your solicitor. It was something like a hot flush, but pleasanter. I got quite angry thinking about all we'd missed. You see, I was rather sheltered from life. My mother was a very reserved woman and never mentioned anything personal. The day my period started, I was too frightened to tell her. I ran down the road to my school friend Jeanie, who gave me an aspirin and the doings. Till the day she died, my mother never knew I menstruated. Heaven knows where she thought I got Karen and Howard. I sometimes wonder myself. Well, my dear, all for now. I hope you're eating plenty of fish. Let me know if you'd like a visit. Yours very affectionately, Vera.
4th of November. Dear Vera, thank you for another lovely letter. My recovery is going apace. I got my hearing back before leaving hospital, which hasn't been much of a comfort, since the only people who have been speaking to me are that awful girl, Leslie, my solicitor, who keeps saying, "That'll be another £100, please," and the police, and the conversations have been rather one-sided. However, a few days ago when I was out shopping, a young man grabbed me by the collar, shoved a water pistol in my face, and said if I didn't give him my pension and my jewellery, I'd be dead. Before I knew what I was doing, I'd stamped on his instep, elbowed him in the solar plexus, and, picking him up off the floor, hissed, "Stealing from the elderly shrinks your ghoulies, you worthless hemorrhoid." I don't know who was more surprised, him or me. Imagine those being my very first words. I went straight back home and tried practising in front of the mirror, but so far all I can seem to manage are rude words. The strange thing is, I don't seem to care about the impression I make now. Maybe I should have had a blow to the head years ago. I feel unconstrained, as if I finally managed to get to the powder room and take off a crippling corset. Some days I wake up and think, I really should do that dusting, and then I think, sod that for a game of soldiers, and I go swimming. Last night I went to the pictures on my own and had a bag of popcorn and a hot dog and thoroughly enjoyed myself. The girl looked at me a bit askance when I asked for one to see Rain Bollocks, but what do I care? If that boy Dustin Hoffman can get work with his appalling disabilities, then I can certainly pay my way to watch him at it. If you feel like taking a real risk, I'd quite fancy an outing with you in the not-too-distant. What do you say? Could you cope? Write and let me know soon. I've got to go now, as there's a man at the door wanting to read the frigging meter. Lots of love, Irene. Grosthorpe Police Cells, 18th of November. Dear Vera, as you can see from the above address, I am in dire straits and beg you to help. When I got off the train at Grosthorpe coming back from you, I bumped into Reverend Bruce, who was about to get his train to take up his new duties. A few parishioners were with him, and after we'd put him on the train, we decided to go and have a coffee. But as we were walking down the High Street, Veronica St. John spotted us and asked me how I was and how I'd felt about being charged. We were all getting quite heated, and the next thing I know, I'm being bundled into a police car, charged under the Public Order Act. Apparently you aren't allowed to talk to more than one person at a time in the street these days, otherwise you're inciting them to riot or something. Of course, my swearing affliction didn't help. You can imagine my surprised response to the two young officers who arrested me, or rather, I hope you can't, as I believe I surpassed myself this time. This morning, I was remanded in custody awaiting trial, which could be for anything up to 2 years, apparently, owing to the queues. I am beside myself about Sydney. Could you please get him for me and look after him until my return? I know it's a big favour to ask, but you were the only person I've ever seen him register affection with besides myself. Apart from all this, I had a thoroughly enjoyable weekend with you, notwithstanding the drama at the play. I'm so sorry my memory had to return all in a rush like that during the quiet scene in the second act. I must say they were very decent about it in the bar afterwards. My spirits have risen since a kind WPC showed me yesterday's Mercury. Marjorie Bostock and the girls are organising an Irene Spencer is innocent bring and buy to try to raise my bail. I hope it's a good turnout, as it's been...
I hope it's a good turnout, as it's been set at £250,000. Lots of love, Irene. P.S. Sydney hates tin food of any kind except salmon. 26th of November, my dear Irene. I've collected Sydney, and he was glad to see me. I didn't have any salmon handy, so I gave him a tin of snails Howard bought on his last duty-free trip, and he wolfed them. I'm mustering everyone from here. The great Potterton players have really entered into the spirit and are going to mount a special show. I think it's O Calcutta. Must go. Sydney's barking. All my love, Vera. H.M. Prison Ship, Pride of Cleveland, 12th of December, my dear Irene. I've always wanted to visit one of Her Majesty's residences, but would have preferred it to have been Buckingham Palace. 2 days after I sent off your last letter, Customs and Excise dropped in, through the skylight. Apparently they suspect me of being an international drug runner, but this I only learned after they'd smashed my entire collection of Port Merion teapots. They demanded to know who or what was Sydney. I should have thought that was self-evident, as the poor lamb was howling more ear-shatteringly than the hound of the Baskervilles, but they persisted in thinking he was a euphemism for drug abuse, as is salmon, crack, and snails, a type of psychedelic substance which makes you feel like a giant. This is being smuggled out for me by a charming Jamaican girl with whom I've been sharing a cell. She's going on parole today, and thinks she may stay out long enough to post a letter. Well, my dear, I must close, as Maxine is eager to be off. Keep your pecker up. Love, V.
Cell 214, H.M. Prison Ship, Pride of Cleveland, 20th of December. My dear V, what a chapter of incidents and coincidence. I have just heard on the grapevine that you and I are in the same boat, so to speak. Maxine was picked up almost immediately for possession of an offensive weapon, her afro comb, and was very upset not to have had time to post your letter. Imagine her surprise when she found she was sharing a police cell with me. I'd just read your letter, and she was telling me how you'd been keeping their spirits up with songs from the Blitz and your impressions of the warders when we were bundled up with our few possessions and shipped out here. News of your famous impersonations have reached our ears down here on deck F. You are awful. I bet the governor never said anything like that. Listen, my dear friend, rest assured that you won't be in for much longer. I have made a deposition to my lawyer. Well, I will have when I'm allowed to send it, stating your innocence re your connection with the drugs ring. I'm going to give this to Janice now, who's on kitchen duty, so she can give it to the girl on your deck. It's very pleasant, this feeling of comradeship, isn't it? No wonder they go on about the brotherhood of man. Seems silly that it's taken prison to introduce me to the sisterhood of women. All love, Irene. Kiss, kiss. Care of Sheep Dipper's Shed, 10th of May. Dear Vera, I don't know what right you've got to get shirty with me. If you're cross about me saying you're insane, you must be mad. I am perfectly compos, but I wasn't too proud to be declared unsound of mind if that meant my liberty. I'm very happy to be out, despite the fact that I'm working my fingers to the bone up here at Howard's. I know he's told you that he and Anthony are gay and that you're upset, but so what if they love one another? Your granddaughter Sabrina has nappy rash and colic. Karen's eczema has flared up again. Howard has alopecia and is down to 9 stone 2. Sydney's got enteritis, and Anthony's ingrowing toenail operation was not a success, but had sooner be here than in that hellhole of a prison ship. See sense and be insane. Best wishes, Irene. The Gables, Little Potterton, 14th of July. Dear Vera, I don't suppose you'll be interested, since you have apparently given up all concern for your erstwhile life outside, but I have moved into your old house for a while. I came here to get some peace away from Sheep Dipper's shed. In that respect, I do miss prison life. Being banged up in solitary can sometimes be a blessing. I sold my house when I came out in order to pay our legal fees to the lady barrister and to fund your appeal. There's still some money left, so don't worry, I shan't be a drain on your resources. I'm sorry you've decided to give up your fight and spend the rest of your allotted inside. I had hoped that you and I would spend a jolly retirement together, perhaps travelling the world and doing everything that women of our generation could never do when our husbands were alive. Still, to each one his role. Thought for the day in today's Daily Mirror. And who am I to keep you from your destiny? I had a postcard from Leslie the other day. Keith has left her for another woman, and she's wondering if I'd like to go out there to look after Cheryl Marie while she gets on with her new career in real estate. But after my recent experiences with Karen and Sabrina...
I intend to give a wide berth to spoiled children in future. Kindest regards, Irene. Sheep Dipper's Shed, 22nd of July. Dear Irene, snatching a few moments from washing nappies to put pen to paper, or rather quill to recycled papyrus. Excuse the bumps and blotches. I've just cooked supper for 6 adults, a baby, 12 sheep, 3 dogs, 11 cats, 2 goats and a donkey. Even Jesus would have had trouble making a whole wheat loaf and a couple of free-range trout go round that lot. They are so incompetent. I can quite see why you left. We have a visiting Swami who meditates on the lawn, and who dyed my new underwear orange, and an out-of-work actor chum of Howard's who's helping in the shop. Clearly he's been helping himself, since the till has been out 3 days running. I've just realised you must be wondering what on earth I'm doing here. Well, it was all Arnon's doing. He was my therapist, a top Harley Street man consigned to shipboard duties after publicly announcing the government was balmy. He explained to me that staying inside was fulfilling my need to be needed, and that now the literacy class I was running at Master Janet and John, I could leave them to themselves with the reading. He said he'd give me some LSD and we'd leave the rest to fortune. It was very dramatic. Apparently I shredded a sail with my bare hands and splintered the deck with a hatchet. I came to in a straitjacket. Eventually the governor signed a release form putting me in care of the community. It seems that if you are mad, you're safer on the outside. Everyone there's doolally. About the house, stay as long as you like, though I must say I do miss the garden. How true those sentiments, Wordsworth's, I think, about being closer to God in a garden. Not, I'm afraid, that I believe in God. There, I've said it. I've come to the conclusion that it's a gigantic con trick to keep women in their place. Ask yourself who it is who arranges the flowers, irons the vestments, scrubs the flags, bakes the cakes, and yes, who sits in those uncomfortable pews while some ridiculous twit drones on about duty and self-sacrifice. Your offer of a touring retirement in parts unknown is certainly very attractive, but what, I wonder, would we fund it with? Write soon with a few of your cheery words. Your ever dear friend, Vera.
The Gables, 10th of August. Dear Vera, what an extraordinary story regarding your release. In fact, what an extraordinary turn our lives have taken altogether. It's almost as if we'd never lived before, what with the mundane round of bottling and jamming and bring and buys. And now we've both been in prison, both survived it stronger and wiser, and with, I think, a stronger sense of life's adventure. Now that I know you're safe and well, I've been concentrating my psychic powers on drawing good luck and money to us both. I don't know if it's had any effect your end, but so far nothing has happened here. I tend to agree with you about God and the church. It is all a con trick to keep us in our place. But I feel very strongly that there must be something else, some rhythm to life, some force of good and equally of evil, some otherness or isness linking us all to the whole or something. Damn it, someone at the door. Hang on. Well, I don't know what to say. My dear, my prayers are answered. You remember the demo which led to my arrest? How could you forget? We desperately needed funds, so Arthur Snooshall organised a raffle, and after all this time the blithering thing has been drawn, and I've won first prize. And you'll never guess what it is. A Dormobile camping van, fully fitted and equipped. It's a home, Vera, on wheels. What adventures we could have. Are you game? Do say yes. Let's take off and see the world. I've always wanted to, but never got past Marbella. Vera, this proves my point. There is a purpose to prayer and positive thinking, and magic does exist. Vera, I dare you to come with me and see the world. What have we got to lose? Right back sooner than soon, and hi-ho silver away. Your buccaneering friend, Irene.
14th of August, my dear Irene. My first response to your letter was a whoop of joy. Yesterday I heard that my bank manager has made some terrible errors with standing orders. As a result, I've defaulted on all mortgage and life insurance payments, and the Building Society are about to repossess. Let them. I'll cash in what's left of the life insurance. I was only hanging on to it to pay for my funeral. And up and away! I can't wait to be tucked up in those dear little bunk beds. Later. By the by, how big is this Dormobile? Space is so important in relationships. Arnon taught me that. I mean, I wouldn't call you territorial exactly, but when I stayed, you did put all my things in the corner and covered them with a dust sheet. Then there are other more personal functions. A home on wheels is just the place to discover the worst about toilet training. And how will you be with foreign food? You can't abide a Coquille Saint-Jacques, and the natives are devils for garlic. Come to that, how will you be with the natives? We've had our ups and downs, and that was when we were living apart. How will we be together? Still later. Anthony was sorry for me. He gave me a set of runes, so I'm throwing them madly. Next morning. The runes said journey, so all being well, I leave Friday. Next morning. Woke in tears with a terrible sense of loss. Oh, Irene, we will be all right, won't we?
The Gables, 19th of August. Dear Vera, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. Change is very frightening. But what's the alternative? What use has fear been to us all our lives? It kept me unhappily married to a man who despised me, who couldn't keep his hands off our dinner guests. I'm damned if I'm going to make the same mistake twice, particularly at this late stage in my journey through life. Onwards, ever onwards is my battle cry for the rest of my allotted. We'll work it out if we both keep our senses of humour and try to live and let live. But just in case we temporarily lose our sense of humour, perhaps we should make a rule, like counting to 10 before we speak again, or saying sollox like Amanda and Elliot in Private Lives. Or perhaps, and this might be most apposite for us, perhaps we should only communicate in writing if we're having a set to, thereby giving a chance for tempers to cool and reason to take over. Think about it. The world is very large, as Elliot told Amanda, and it's going to take us a very long time to get round it, Vera, so we're going to have to pack a great deal of patience and humour. But then, what else has a life with Clive fitted me for, I ask myself. So, if you feel up to the challenge, I shall pick you up at the Bull and Pestle at 10 a.m. on Friday, and we'll motor straight down to Dover, cross on the ferry, and be in France by the time the sun is over the Yardarm. Here's to it. The next time we communicate in writing will be because one or other of us is being selfish and unreasonable, I imagine, so I'll take this opportunity of reminding you, in writing, so you don't forget, that I am very fond of you, despite all your foibles, and I wish you only happiness, contentment, and great adventures. Sincerest and heartfelt regards, Irene. Kiss.
An auto route outside Calais, 26th of August. Irene! When I screamed, "Right, right," I was not agreeing that the driver of the approaching truck was a blithering froggy cretin. I was in fear of my life. They drive on the right in this country. Oh. P.S. I counted to 10 before I wrote this, but at this rate it needs to be 40. D.